There we go. Call this meeting to order, regular meeting of Council Town of Oliver, Monday, March 9th, 2020. Are there any late items to add to the agenda?
There are no late items to add to the agenda, Your Honor.
We'll get a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. Councillor Schwarzenberger, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to adoption of prior minutes. Item 1, February 24th, 2020, public hearing, zoning amendment, 1380.12 minutes. Can I get a mover for those minutes? Councillor Grice, second. Councillor Mattes. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 2, February 24th, 2020, regular open council meeting minutes. Can I get a mover to adopt those minutes? Councillor Grice. Second. Councillor Schwarzenberger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Presentations. Fire Chief Bob Graham, 30 years service award. Very happy today to present to the Oliver Fire Chief Bob Graham the Canadian Volunteer Fire Services Association Municipal Long Service Award Medal commemorating 30 years of service in the volunteer firefighting community. Bob has been an Oliver Fire Chief since 2017, and prior to that, the Deputy Fire Chief since 2011, and an active member for 25 years in the Oliver Fire Department.
And everybody's here for you.
Believe that to be true.
Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
Deserved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Well done. Moving to committee reports. Get a verbal report from Chairperson Mattes from the Committee of the Whole meeting this afternoon.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a presentation by John Ingram and Jordan Koenig of Ecoplan Consulting regarding a draft strategy for economic development in Oliver, and they're focusing on a program they're calling Grow Oliver, which makes a nice acronym of GO. So it, at this point, is just a draft strategy. We basically saw the outline without a whole lot of flesh on the bones. It will be coming back before council. It started in the summer 2019 with over 200 surveys and input from students and everybody else. Really a positive thing. The second item was 555 Burl Crescent, which has been a problem property in town for some time. We have sent a letter to the Heritage Ministry notifying them of the removal of that property from the Heritage what do they call it?
Registry.
Heritage Registry, so that which will then allow the owner of the property to move forward with their plans. We also carried on with a council policy review. There are probably 100 different policies enacted by various councils over the years. And as we have time in our committee, the whole meetings, we will be looking at these policies, updating, rescinding, or amending. Those policies are all on our website now, if anybody does want to go and read them. It's pretty exciting stuff. And we will continue to work on that project, and that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Chairman Mattes. Moving to water matters, item 1, the water quality report for February 2020. We have an engineer technologist report that was attached to the council agenda. I'll refer to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Your Honor. And council members. This is the February water quality summary report. Not much happens in the February report usually. We are continuing working at our Mount Cobo pump station and doing the electrical and control upgrades there. And we're also dealing with some minor hypochlorite injection lines problems that we had at the Rockcliffe pump house. But overall, the consumption use for the month was on the 7-year average, and we actually received more than normal snowfall in February as well. So, but if council had any questions, really there's not too much to it on this report.
Councillor Mattes?
Just one quick question, and you may or may not have the answer. How many gallons are in a cubic meter?
278, I want to say.
I just wondered. if there's
Yeah, I
questions
forget off the
from-
top of my head now because I
gallons.
always convert online now. I used to know that.
Understood.
And we usually have, it's usually noted in cubic meters and in US gallons because we have some older equipment that still uses US gallons, some of our old meters.
If there's no other questions, can I get a motion to receive the public reports that Councillor Grace, Councillor Sidhu? Further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Moving to item 2, the annual water quality report for 2019. I'll refer to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Your Honor. Both these reports happen to fall on the same day, but this is the annual water quality report, which we're mandated to do from IHA, and it's on our conditions on permits. And it actually, what it does, it gives staff and others reading the report a snapshot of the year and what we did, how we did, where we're going, because it outlined capital projects, some of the capital projects that we've done and what's in the future. All those capital projects are already talked about at our budget deliberations, so I won't get into those as much, but I thought I'd just highlight some of the key stats and highlights throughout the annual report. We have close to 2,600 domestic users in our system, that's in town and the rural area. 601 irrigation users that cover about 5,200 acres. Our water usage has trended down in the last 18 years by quite a bit. So from 2002 on, we've trended down. And just to give people an idea, about 23% of the overall water usage is from our groundwater, and 77% obviously is from our surface water systems, which is primarily irrigation. This year, June saw the most consumption for groundwater. I think that's because our July and August were a little cooler than some other years. And then August was obviously the highest for surface water. Generally July or August for our irrigation users are the highest months. I won't get into all the capital projects because we've discussed a lot of these recently, but if anybody had any questions or from that report, I'm available to answer them if I can.
I have just one question. So on page 14 of the report, it's saying all of our domestic system used approximately 881 liters of water per person per day in 2019, which is 552 liters above the Canadian average. Is that just referring to we live in such a vast agriculture area with a low population? Is that why our numbers are way above the averages?
I think we're above the average. I think if you look, there's some other graphs in there. I apologize, my EngTech put this together, but we just take the data, what happens in the Okanagan and in all of our Osoyoos areas, it's drier, of course, right? So people that are using domestic water for irrigating, and we're generally way above the average, especially in the South Okanagan to the North Okanagan.
Okay, so that's normal.
Yeah, it's normal. Every year we're over that, but if you look at all of our trends over recent years, and ever since we started water metering our domestic side, everything's trending down. And even the farmers have got better irrigation systems, and everybody seems to be more cognizant of the water usage. So we have trended down. We're just still higher than most areas. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Mattes.
Thank you. I just have a question about something on page 7, systems 2 and 2B domestic. So if I'm reading it right, there is a portion of our system that isn't twinned, which is system 2, and supplies both irrigation and domestic water.
Yeah, that's correct.
So where-
Yeah, there's that's up in the Black Sage area. So we call it System 2, but it's split. So one half of the customers have access to. We have a pump station off an oxbow that feeds from the river, and we only have so much capacity, so we could feed half of those properties. But the rest of them come off of our Black Sage wells, which we have 3 wells, and a little bit of Miller Road as well. So, and they use that water, and it's groundwater, and they use it for irrigating as well. It's been that way forever. We've never twinned it. Otherwise, we'd have to find another source or feed from the river and develop something and then twin. It's not feasible at this time.
So sorry, the non-treated water is coming out of wells then, not the canal in this.
There's treated water at our Black Sage wells as well, because they're using it for domestic water, so we have to treat it. But all we're doing is the minimum amount of chlorine necessary. Our the water quality there is half decent, and then out of the oxbow, it's not treated at all, and it's just strictly for irrigation.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Mattes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the Director of Operations, would that also account for some of is that usage on System 2B included in that 881 liters per person average? So irrigation there would be included in that number because we can't differentiate?
It's hard to differentiate. Yeah, it is. It's difficult to, but if later in the report, like if you go to our consumption data, it actually highlights, should have it in here, sorry, flipping through your pages here. So yeah, near the end of the report, we'll have our consumption monthly totals, and it'll list all the domestic water, groundwater wells in blue. And then if you notice, Fairview Irrigation, and well, Fairview Irrigation is not used for that anymore, but where is it? Miller and Black Sage are used for both. And then it shows our surface water pump stations as well. So yeah, there's some fudging with the numbers a little bit when it comes to how much actual domestic water is used from those, but we have a good idea because we know the percentages for the rest of the system. It's going to be fairly close.
Any more questions, council? Can I get a mover to receive the annual water quality report for 2019? Councillor Mattes. Councillor Mattes, second. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 3, irrigation and diversion start dates for 2020.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. This is the last water report, I promise. This one, the purpose of this report is to determine the start dates for the 2020 canal diversion and official irrigation season startup. So that way staff, we can start preparing and letting people know, advertising and doing what we need to do. We've already got guys out there working on our canal and getting that prepped for the year. So council has given some options. The canal diversion start date for Monday, April 6th. And that usually gives us, if we start that on a Monday, it usually takes us about 4 days to let the water flow. We chase the water, we clean up more debris and get the pump houses ready and ready to start pumping. And then because of the Easter long weekend this year, we're proposing that the irrigation season start on Tuesday the 14th. And then that way we don't have to staff as many people over the long weekend, right? But and the 14th does fall in line with the last few years with the start dates. There'll be spray water available, so people, if they need a little bit of water for certain things, and if somebody's in dire straits, we can work something out. So I'll just touch a couple of things. We are planning on restoring 300 meters of canal with shotcreting and relining the floor with concrete. So that 300 meters is needs to be completed, and right now we're watching the temperatures, and we're not liking the overnight temperatures because you want your concrete, you don't want your concrete to freeze, right? So if you're laying new concrete, so we may have to push. We have a company lined up next week, but we may have to push them off. So that's why having a safe date of the 6th, like I think we could still meet the diversion date. What else was there? And I've got the historical starting dates attached to the report, so if people are wondering when we did start diversion or start the irrigation season, there's a history going back to 2002. Were there any questions?
No. Seeing no questions, we have a motion that council authorize staff to receive the canal diversion irrigation season start dates of April 6th and 14th.
So,
Moved by Councillor Mattes, second Councillor Schwarzenberger. Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. And report from Councillor Sidhu.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just this afternoon meeting and tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Sidhu.
Thank you.
Moving to development permit variance permits. The first one is Oliver Landing development permit with variances for phase 2 and 3, and DP amendment for phase 1. I'll refer to the Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. This application is for the Oliver Landing development. The first permit is the development permit with variances for phases 2 and 3, and the second permit is the DP amendment for phase 1. So a bit of a background: on October 24, 2016, Council approved development permit 2016-21 for phase 1 of the Oliver Landing development, which was for the construction of 3 4-unit townhouses. An occupancy permit was recently issued for the third townhouse, with the landscaping remaining as an incomplete item. On January 8, 2018, Council approved development variance permit 2017-15, and that was for phase 2 and 3, which is for a total of 28 units. And that varied the minimum rear setback from 6 to 4.5 along the river here. It varied the minimum north exterior side yard setback from 2.4 to 1 meters, which was the far northeast corner here. And the minimum south interior side parcel line from 6 meters to 2.4 for this unit here in the southeast. On January 22nd, 2018, Council approved development permit 2017-20 for phase 2 and 3, which included 7 4-unit townhouses. The DP, though, was not issued as the landscape deposit was not paid. So the proposal before us, the applicant is proposing to construct phase 2, so 12 units, and phase 3, 16 units of the Oliver Landing development. The development permit is being requested with the following variances. Section 8.2, Table 8.22, required off-street loading spaces, to waive the 2 required loading spaces. Section 12.2.7 AII, to decrease the minimum rear parcel line setback from 6 meters to 4.5 meters. Section 12.2.7 AII, to decrease the minimum north interior side parcel line from 6 to 1.2 for all 3 stories. And then 12.2 7A, to decrease the minimum south interior side parcel line from 6 to 2 for all 3 stories. The applicant is also proposing to amend the previously issued DP for phase 1 of Oliver Landing due to the revisions and improvements to the presently approved landscape plan. So there's the property location map, so at the corner of Co-op Avenue and Sawmill Road. And this is showing the 2 properties currently. So the property is a phase strata, so what that means after the first phase, it's registered and it's essentially subdivided off from the rest. So what we have now is phase 1, which is, as you can see with these perfectly square boxes I drew. And then phase 2 and 3 is over here. So the rest of the buildings, the 7-unit townhouses will go here. And the idea is as phase 2 gets registered, then phase 1 and 2 become the strata. And then as phase 3 gets registered, then the whole thing is now the strata. That's how phase stratas work. So the zoning is RH2 residential high density 2, and the OCP is high density residential. Some photos of the subject property. So on the left is the existing frontage along Sawmill Road. On the right is also a picture of the frontage along Sawmill Road. Picture on the left is the existing frontage along Oliver Landing Crescent, and then on the right is also the existing frontage around Oliver Landing Crescent. Photo on the left is the partially constructed Oliver Landing Crescent. On the right is the current internal roadway. Picture on the left is also the internal roadway, and then the picture on the right is what the south property line looks like now, adjacent to the public works yard. And the photo on the left is the phase 2 and 3 undeveloped areas, and same thing with the photo on the right. And then lastly, this photo is the rear property line along the river channel. So here's a map showing their current site plan. So you'll see phase 1 is these 3 buildings, and then phase 2 and 3 are these buildings, and these are the variance requests. So this time around they're also requesting a variance to this north side to 1.2 meters. This is a walkway here that'll go from this area to the channel. The rear yard are also being proposed to be reduced to 4.5 meters. In this case, the building is actually set at 6, with the decks projecting an additional 1.5 meters. And then they're also proposing a variance down here to 2 meters, and this is facing the public works yard. Here's some elevations showing the building. This is the front elevation, the rear elevations, and the left and right elevations. So the main floor plan has a garage and a bedroom in the back. They're all very similar units. The second floor plan has sort of the living area, the kitchen, the dining room with the deck. And the third floor would be the additional bedrooms. So the change in the landscape plan, so phase 1, so on the left here is the original landscape plan. It was pretty minimal. There's some shrubs and things, very minimal trees. It also leaves this whole boulevard area, so the area between the street and the development, empty. So that's what would have happened without this proposed amendment. And then now they're proposing to landscape this whole area. So there will be rocks, so they're going with more of a xeriscape approach, but there'll be multiple planting beds throughout the development with trees mixed in as well. And these trees will wrap around sort of on the Oliver Landing Crescent side as well. And then a 6-foot fence with a lattice will be constructed along the south side as well, which will help to provide a bit of privacy from the public works yard to the residents. So here's the landscape plan. So now we're moving on to the phase 2 and 3 development permit. And yeah, it's sort of a similar plan here. There's some landscaping patches throughout the development. There's a tree pretty much in each property. They've landscaped nicely along the south property line, which there would be a lot of, 3, 6, 9, there'll be 9 visitor parking spaces along the south property line, which provides a bit of a buffer as well from the public works yard from these residents. And then each unit will just have its own individual driveway access with 1 space in front of it. So phase 3, same idea, the river channel being back here, and they'll have trees along this whole property line as well. And then some landscaping along here. They'll have some trees at the end of this crescent. So some of the staff comments. So regarding the loading space requirements, the required loading space requirement for a residential development is 1 per 20 dwelling units. So in this case, there's 2 spaces required. Staff don't see it as a concern providing no spaces because staff recommend approval of the variance given that when a delivery occurs or a person is moving in or out, it's likely that they'll park in front of the respective unit rather than in a loading space, like a dedicated loading space. And because of this, staff recommend revisiting the loading space requirements for a townhouse through a future housekeeping amendment bylaw. The variance to decrease the minimum rear parcel line from 6 to 4.5. The buildings along the river are constructed at 6 with the decks projecting that additional distance. So in the previously approved development variance permit, a 4.5 meter rear setback was approved, and that permit has since expired. Staff don't believe that this variance will impact any of the neighbors, and it creates more variation to the building, which will increase the aesthetic appearance of the building from the hike and bike path. The third variance, which is to reduce the minimum north interior side parcel line from 6 to 1.2 meters for all 3 stories. So as mentioned, through the recently approved DVP 2017-15, this north interior side parcel line was varied to 1 meter to accommodate the far northeast unit. And this unit is adjacent to a walkway that would be going to the hike and bike path, so it's likely to be impacted by neighboring property owners. And the last variance, which is to decrease the south interior side parcel line, this was also varied through the recently approved development variance permit. And this property is adjacent to the public works yard, so our staff have reviewed it and don't see very much concern about this one. Regarding the development permits of the form and character, staff believe that the development meets the intent of the multifamily development permit area as highlighted below. So the townhouses feature multiple colors of metal siding as well as multiple decks and roof projections, adding visual interest to the building. The rear units are orientated to take advantage of the views present towards the river channel to the east. A small landscaping strip separates the driveway, limiting the negative visual impacts associated with multiple side-by-side driveways. Each of the units' backyards have a tree and small planting area which helps to beautify the property. Trees are proposed along the south property line with a fence, helping to provide a buffer for the residents from the public works yard. And the design allows for the majority units to be accessed from internal roads. This ensures that the sawmill frontage is fully landscaped. With that, the options for council is that council may choose to support the staff recommendation. They may choose not to support it, or they may choose to refer it back to staff for additional information. Staff recommend that council approve development permit with variances number 2019-35 and that council approve development permit amendment 2020-05, a permit to amend DP 2016-21, and that staff be directed to issue the permits. And I do have a quick little rendering thing here that was passed on from the developer that I thought I'd show council and people here tonight. So this will be coming down the end of the cul-de-sac, sort of at a running pace. You take this internal roadway and there's the units there, so there's lots of trees. And I'm a bad tour guide. So as you're zooming out, you can see the units close to the river. It's not quite fully realistic, but you get the picture there. Yeah, so that's just a quick rendering I thought I'd show. And that's the end of my report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Director. Questions, comments, council? Councillor Mattes.
I'll start us off. I have quite a few questions, but I'll just ask a couple and then we can take the turns. The first one is about, in regards to all of the changes being requested, and it's about the rear setback. So the change being requested, and I believe that it was granted originally, was the change from 6 meters to 4.5 from the rear of the property line. Do you know how far the property line is from the bike path? Any idea how far?
I can get that for you in a sec if Madam CEO has an answer.
The property line is 7.5 meters from the toe of the dike. That's where the property line is, which is what it has to be.
Okay. So we're talking quite a distance back from the bike path, even though we're making changes. Okay, thank you. I'll let any others look at questions if you do.
Councillor Mattes.
I'll jump in at that point then. That 4.5, just to clarify, is similar to the question I asked the first time around, and that really applies to the second story. If I understand it correctly, that is 6 meters, it'll still be 6 meters in the ground, but the balcony will be projecting in to the 4.5 meters, just for clarification. The only comment I would make for me was, you mentioned revisiting the loading zone requirements, and I would also ask that you look at the possibility of putting completion timeframes for landscaping following the occupancy permits. just, I noticed on some of the comments that that was one of the concerns, and it's quite often the concern that we get is that we give a permit, but we have no way of, people will move in, but we have no way of enforcing, that the landscaping be done before we spend the deposit and do the work ourselves. And I'd just like you to give that some consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Mattes. Councillor Schwarzenberg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I noticed that as well on the comments that we received, that there was a lot of comment on the landscaping, and I'm glad to see that the amendment for phase 1 has also increased the budget for landscaping from $6,400 to $42,000 with the 25% extra deposit to bring it up to $52,500. But I agree that maybe we should have a time limit on that as well, or some sort of, because those units are already built in phase 1, so the landscaping should be done ASAP.
Should be that way for every development.
Yeah.
Councillor Renteria.
Thanks. So I'll just pick up there because that's what my other comments were about as well. From the feedback, do we have an ability to require that the landscaping for phase 1 be completed before we allow phase 2 to proceed? So those people that are living there and have been living there for a couple of years are still living in a construction zone.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure. I'd have to read through the Local Government Act to see if that's something that we can require. Putting conditions based on previous permits, I'd have to look into that.
Because if we can, it would be, personally, I think it would be nice to see the landscaping, like the first phase completed, which it shouldn't take too long before you move on to the second. It would also be nice to see the perimeter fence erected again, so that those that are living there, you know, the vision is seen through. They're not living beside the public works yard in full plain view. But I would be interested to know if we can do that before allowing them to move on to the second phase. I think that's it.
Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Worship. To the Director of Development Services, can we, I don't know if you can zoom in on it, the interior side parcel line, north interior side parcel line, we're looking at reducing from 6 meters to 1.2 meters for the setback. Can you just go over like where the side of the building is in relation to the fence, in relation to the path,
Sure.
in relation to the parcel line, just so I can get an idea of like how condensed that's gonna be in there?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the parcel lines are back here, right? The rear ones. And then, so this is a 4.5 meter distance to where the edge of the decks are, and then 6 meters. So it's 6 meters from the back parcel line, so from here. So this would be the parcel line here,
Okay.
and then it'd be 1.2 meters to the building. I mean, it's tight for sure, but 1.2 meters is often a setback that you see in just a single family
Where is
residential
that
zone.
in relation to the fence and the path though?
Well, the path would run along the property line, right? So the path would
So it's
run
gonna
like,
be within that,
Well,
like the path will be
path's on
1.2
the
meters?
outside of the property line there.
yeah.
That's the width of the path right there. Yeah.
But you can see where the building is to
Yeah.
the property line there. That's 1.2 meters. So then this is the property line here. So that's the far south,
And
and
that's
then,
the
this is
path.
the other. Yeah, and then this is the other property line. So this is the path here.
Okay, and then the path is, and then the fence is gonna be on the outside of the path?
Well,
Or
the
is there
fence would
gonna be a
run.
fence?
There'd be a fence running along this path based on their renderings
Both sides.
on both sides.
Both sides of the path.
It just seems kinda tight, that's,
It,
that's.
yeah, I mean it's tight, but
But I guess, I mean, it's only gonna be foot traffic through.
Yeah,
the-
it's only foot traffic.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Doug, for your side.
Based on the scale, what would you estimate the width of that path to be?
We can.
Path is, I'm trying to remember.
It almost looks, if I were to guess, I'd say if that's 1.2, then it's probably 5 meters wide.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna have a storm line going through there to an outfall as well.
Okay.
Councillor Schwarzenberg.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to the Director of Development Services. Any of the other issues with the Phase 1 development, have those all been cleared up to your satisfaction? I know this is amending the landscaping one, but I believe there was a couple of other issues, and I just wanted to make sure that those have been cleared up.
Sure, I can speak to that. Landscaping is definitely a big concern for the residents, and that would be being addressed through this. There are some other issues on the property that involve the developers and the strata, and we're hoping that those will be addressed in a timely manner. They're working on an agreement to get some of those issues fixed. Ultimately, at this stage, this is just to give approval for development permit for the future phases. It's not giving them building permit approval yet, right? So there's still time to get that sorted. But yeah, there are a couple other issues. I don't want to speak in too much detail to them, but we're confident moving forward with the people that are now taking over the development. We're confident that these issues will get addressed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Mattes.
So I haven't heard much else up here yet, but I personally, again, I would feel, oh wait, because they have to ask a question. Okay.
Sorry, what was the last question?
No, I stopped. So, personally, again, I would feel more comfortable knowing that Phase 1 is going to be complete, at least the landscaping portion, before we move on to the second phase. So I don't know, it's already been quite some time to get to this point. I don't know if holding off a couple of weeks makes that much of a difference. But would this be the spot to stop and wait and see if we have that ability, or would when you issue the building license at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, this could be one of the mechanisms, but at the end, it is a phase strata, so the approving officer can hold off on future phases to ensure that all issues are addressed. So that would be another opportunity.
I was just going to follow up and say which is the better time to do it.
We're just trying to get an answer on the development permit.
For us now, we won't have much. It will depend on staff options. So then you are suggesting option 3.
Councillors. Director.
So I should add, as per section 490 of the Local Government Act, which details development permits, local government by resolution may issue a development permit that imposes conditions respecting the sequence and timing of construction. So you could put a timeline on the landscaping for this amendment if you wish, based on what we're reading here. But that would be regarding the Phase 1 amendment, right? Yeah.
Councillor Schwartzberg.
No, that answers my question. I was just gonna ask about, when the deposit comes in, how long after the landscaping deposit comes in, is it normal that the landscape work is done? Because obviously that didn't happen last time, so we wanna try and get a time limit on that, but that seems to answer that question.
Yeah, no, it's a tricky one. I mean, it's good to put a timeline on it for sure. And in my previous work, we didn't often do that. And you see similar situation. People move into Phase 1, and then Phase 2 happens, and then Phase 3 happens, and the landscaping is still not done from Phase 1, and the conversation becomes challenging, right? It's now the local government's time to take the money and get the landscaping done, but there's not really a set timeline, right? So, but you could do that through this process.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to the Director of Development Services. So, am I correct that this is a completely new development corporation that's taken over this project now? So the other development corporation is no longer involved?
That's my understanding.
So, I mean, because in my opinion, I think they're coming in to move this along finally, and I would hate to put in restrictions and really see this development go through. I mean, if they're ready to go, I'm assuming they'd come in and take it over so that they can get it done.
Councillor Mattes.
Well, I would just say to that I would hope so, and if we were to require them to complete the stuff that should have been completed for Phase 1 before moving on to Phase 2, that shouldn't then be an impediment like that. That shouldn't be an issue if the goal is now
Thank you, Worship. Again to Mr. Houle. So if we weren't gonna put a restriction on, in your opinion, would their course of action to be to complete all 3 phases and then do the landscaping for the entire project, or do you think that they would landscape as they go?
Ideally, they'd finish the landscaping in one phase and then move on to the next phase. That would be sort of the appropriate way to do it. Phase 2 and 3 may be sort of a bigger project where they may build out a lot of the buildings at the same time, so maybe in that case it would be appropriate to do it all at once, but for sure they need to get the landscaping addressed in phase 1 right now. Which I think I should add that the developers are willing to do that. That's something they want to do, is get the landscaping addressed right away. That's what they've told me.
Councillor Mattes.
Well, if that's the case, then I don't see any harm. I don't know how to word whatever motion that may be. Oh, somebody beside me might. But I would feel comfortable requiring that the landscaping for phase 1, and I do think the perimeter fence as well, be completed before phase 2. And that's some wording.
Yes, it would be that council approved development permit with variances number 2019-035, and further the council approved development permit amendment number 2020-05, a permit to amend development permit 2016-21, and that staff be directed to issue permits, and further that staff be directed to not issue occupancy permits for phase 2 or 3 until landscaping is completed on phase 1.
Because occupancy permits means the building is built. I didn't want them to be able to build the building until landscaping is done.
If you have different timing, I'd be happy to.
3 months.
I'll just wait to see what it says on the board. Just-
Correct.
I should add that I think it will complicate things a bit more if you do it that way. I think it would be good to just put a timeline, if it's the landscaping that you're concerned on, put a timeline just strictly for the landscaping in the amendment in phase 1. So don't involve phase 2 as because they're separate permits.
I'm not sure which one is which in the recommendation. I'm assuming the first one is for phase 2.
2020-05.
2020-05.
Yeah, so 2020-05 is a permit to amend DP 2016-21.
And that would be the one that we would put a
Time.
specific time
Yeah,
limit
to
on?
finish, to complete the landscaping works.
But again, what happens if they don't? Does that mean that we then begin spending the money?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And that would be a condition in the permit, and that's a condition in every permit, but normally there's not a timeline. Normally they have to start the construction within 2 years, right?
Okay, so then we would delete that last portion, yeah. And then I will change it, that council approved development permit amendment number 2020-05, a permit to amend development permit 2016-21, and further that all work under development permit 2020-05 be completed within 9 days of issuance.
No, that's what I was looking for, was a 3-month or 90-day completion date on the phase 1 landscape.
And that's from the issuance of the permit.
Yep.
And that's all that remains on that permit, is just
And
the landscaping.
if I may, Your Worship, and to the Director of Services, the issuance of the permit is also when you get the landscaping deposit, is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. So that if it's not done in 3 months, then the deposit would be exercised and we would put the landscaping.
Councillor Mattes.
I like the idea. I'm just wondering, is 90 days a reasonable amount of time to get that amount of work done? I have no clue. That's why I'm asking that question.
Good.
Sorry, I should add, if it's not a reasonable enough time, then they may delay paying the deposit. I'm not giving them ideas, but I'm just saying that
That was going to be my suggestion, is that they begin to work immediately. And then that would allow them, and then they don't ask for the permit to be issued until a certain point, until they know they can get it done within 9 days.
So I'll second the proposed, the amended recommendation.
So just to be clear, so we're rescinding the original development permit for the landscaping and replacing it with this amended one with a timeline condition on it.
Yeah, you're amending it.
Right.
You're keeping the other permit though,
Right.
because it had all the detailed elevations, right?
Right.
We're just simply replacing the landscaping plan
Mhm.
in this amended permit. And we're now requiring $52,000 bond rather than the $6,000 that was paid at the original time.
And that bond is required because that permit's been in place since 2016.
Yeah, and we still have the money for that,
Mhm.
right?
CEO.
This, the bond for the amendment will be required before we sign off and issue the permit for the amendment.
Councillor Mattes.
I think that as well, and that could be corrected here, that because they are linked together, the first permit won't be issued because they're in the same resolution. It wouldn't be issued separately from the second permit, that they would both be issued at the same time.
That's fair.
I'm just looking at, because if we don't have some linkage there, then that would allow them to begin phase 2 and 3 and not get the permit until whenever they choose.
Councillor Benjamin.
That's what I just wanna make sure, so in super plain English, you do not get the development permit for phase 2 and 3 before you complete the landscaping. Once you request the permit, you have 90 days to complete,
Once the permit is issued.
once the permit's issued, but that's.
Yeah, once
that's
permit's
the plain
issued.
English.
Yeah. But they're gonna wanna, a lot of the point behind getting a development permit is to facilitate marketing of phases 2 and 3, so they're gonna wanna get the development permit for phase 2 and 3 right away, and then yes, we can require them to also pay for the development permit amendment, which with the updated landscaping costs at the same time for phase 1.
Back to plain English, so once they request the development permit, or once we issue it, is the clock starts for the 9
Well,
days?
they've already requested, right? So yeah, once they make the deposit, then that's when we issue the permit.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Discussions? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 2, development permit 6273 Main Street. Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Worship. This application is for a development permit, number 2018-29 for 6273 Main Street. Alright, so the applicant is proposing to construct a one-story, 663 square foot addition to an existing restaurant, along with a 20-seat outdoor patio with a pergola. The subject property is located within the Town Center Development Permit Area, the OCP, and requires approval for the design and to address landscaping requirements. Here's a picture of the property location map, located on the east side of Main Street in the mid-block of the 6200 block. Some photos of the subject property, so the street view on the left, and it's the current Amori Pizza. And on the right is the rear view of the existing restaurant. The left photo is the south elevation, with the right photo being the east elevation. So here's the proposed site plan. So you'll see the existing building is outlined in black here. And the applicants are proposing the area in red. Oops. Which is, this will be like another prep area for them. And then the idea is this will be an outdoor patio space here in the front. So there you'll see the floor plan, so the storage and prep area here with the concrete patio out here at the front with a pergola. And because you can't construct wood construction in close proximity to the property line, they actually had to pull the pergola back a bit from the property line, so 4 feet, which then allowed them to landscape this area here. So there's the street elevation, so you'll see the railing there with the pergola, and like I said, sort of the 4-foot gap here with some landscaping. And the idea is that they will redo the stucco on the current building. The applicant's already replaced the windows and painted the door. So this is the rear elevation. And that's the side elevation. So you'll see there'll be the patio area there, and then the stucco wall, and then this is actually a screen it'll help to screen the garbage enclosure, which will be, you'll see from the renderings here, which will be helpful because currently this is a big empty lot, right? So this will provide some nice screening at this time. Yeah, so there's the pictures of the property. Some comments: the proposed development meets the intent of the town center development permit area as highlighted below. Vehicle access to the site will be from the rear lane and located behind the building, not in view from Main Street. The waste containers will be screened from view from the south side, and the developer will be providing a small landscaped area along the south side of the patio, providing a pleasant buffer from the future building. A sizable outdoor eating area will be constructed adjacent to the street. Currently, limited outdoor patio spaces or options exist along Main Street. The existing building will see improvements, as I mentioned, windows, door, painting, and a new roof, which will definitely be a big part of the revitalization of the building. The addition will provide a break-in facade and maintain the historic pattern of lot and building widths along Main Street. So along Main Street, they have that sort of 25-foot look of buildings, and they change, and this will help to continue that, because you'll be going from the existing building here to more of a wooden patio. So instead of just a big wide building, it breaks it up. So with that, the 3 options that council may choose to support the recommendation, they may choose not to support it, or they may choose to refer it back to staff for additional information. And with that, the staff recommendation is that council approve development permit number 2018-29, and that staff be directed to issue the permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments, questions, report, council?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think it's great. I think, as the Director of Development Services said, there's very little opportunity for patio dining along Main Street, and this is going to be a great addition, for sure.
Councillor Brannigan?
Thank you. I would just add to that, I'm so excited to see somebody investing in downtown, especially a local business owner that already is working in the area. I think our longer-term goal for the downtown zone is to have living, working, playing in that area. And so ideally, as we move forward, future developments have living quarters on the 2nd and potentially 3rd floors. But I recognize this is an addition to an existing building and kind of fits with what's there already. And it's a great first step for the downtown, so I'm excited for the development.
Councillor Grace?
I'll move that council approve development permit number 2018-29, and that staff be directed to issue the permit.
Second.
Any further discussion? I would just comment that I agree as well. Animating downtown with outdoor patios is, this will definitely help for sure. Create movement, create some activity, liven it up a bit. We'll call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to bylaws, zoning amendment bylaw 1380.126422 Main Street for adoption. Pass it over to the Director of Development Services.
Okay, so I'll take it. This is the zoning amendment bylaw for the property along Airport Street. And, no,
This would be Main Street across from the Legion.
across from the Legion. Okay, yes, this is the, sorry.
Sorry, I can add. Sorry, I can get it down.
I'm just going everywhere.
Yeah. Sorry, I was interrupted. Yeah, this is adoption of the Dairy Queen zoning amendment 6422 Main Street. So the conditions were that they paid the $15,000 to close the existing driveway, and then also that the ministry signs off, and those items have been completed. So it's before you for adoption.
Councillor Mattes.
I will move adoption of zoning amendment bylaw 1380.12.
Second, Councillor Schwarzenberger. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Moving to business, item 1, non-medical cannabis retail license for 6234 Main Street. Refer to the Director of Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. This application is a local government recommendation for non-medical cannabis retail store located at 6234 Main Street, which is interior cannabis. The purpose of this report is for council to direct staff to send either a recommendation of support or denial to the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch regarding the proposed non-medical cannabis retail store at 6234 Main Street. So just to give a bit of an update on the current application, so there is the BC Cannabis store that was approved in the south end. They're working at it slow. They haven't even asked for a building permit yet, so I'm not sure truthfully what the status is on that one. Higher Path has been approved and they're now operating. Interior Cannabis, this proposed application before you. Tumbleweeds is one that's still undergoing the fit and proper assessment with the province, and that would be just north of this one. And then Blue Water Cannabis is operating. It's at 6341 Main Street. They have their license and they're selling. So just a bit of a background: through the implementation of zoning bylaw 1380 in July of 2018, cannabis dispensary became a permitted use in the town center and highway commercial zones. These are the primary commercial zones within the town of Oliver. Following that process, the town's land use procedure bylaw 1367 was amended to include procedures for processing cannabis applications. So the subject property, as I mentioned, 6234 Main Street. There's a photo of the property as well. So it's currently vacant. It's next to Casa Luna and Auntie Aggie's Seafood. The zoning is town center. So just a bit of information on interior cannabis. The store is approximately 1,150 square feet in size. It'll employ approximately 2 people, and tentative store hours are from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Here's a floor plan. So the Main Street entry here, with a table and a couch, and the display table in the middle with the display cases all around the outside. And then this back area is a staff area only. So regarding the public feedback, 9 feedback forms were submitted, 6 of which were in support and 3 not in support. Reasons for not supporting the application were due to the associated problems that come with this type of business. And that's the applicants, or the submitters' words, not mine. Some options for council on this application is that council directs staff to send a recommendation of support to the BC LCRB for a non-medical cannabis retail license at 6234 Main Street. The second option is that council directs staff to send a recommendation of denial to the BC LCRB for a non-medical cannabis retail store license at 6234 Main Street. And the third option is that the application is referred back to staff. And with that, the staff recommendation is that council directs staff to send a recommendation of support to the BC LCRB for a non-medical cannabis retail store license at 6234 Main Street for Interior Cannabis Co. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Sure.
Councillor Benjamin.
Well, I would move the staff recommendation, and I would add that I think all of the positive comments that we received were from business owners in the area. So business is happy to see business on Main Street, this is our 3rd business-related item that we're dealing with on Main Street in just a couple minutes, which is good news for downtown. And I move the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Councillor Schwarzenberg. Further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 2, Federation of Canadian Municipalities Convention. Budget for consideration. I'll refer to the corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before Council is to seek Council's authorization to allocate resources from the council travel and convention budget to send an additional council member to the FCM convention in June 2020. At the January 28th, 2020 special open meeting during council's budget deliberations, it was resolved to reduce the council travel and conventions budget by $2,500 to $27,400, as it was noted at that time that Mayor Johansson would be the only member attending the FCM 2020 convention. Since that time, Councillor Grace has made a request that council consider allocating resources to allow her to attend the FCM convention. As the budget was reduced to enable council members to attend FCM to one member, authorization is now required by council resolution to authorize the travel expenditure, and that's noted in travel and expense bylaw 1304.1 that all travel, convention, reception, and entertainment and like expenses incurred by members of council must have prior approval by council resolution, except for the following expenditures. So there are some options for council this evening that you may wish to authorize the allocation of $2,500 from the council travel and convention budget to send Councillor Grace to the FCM convention. You may wish not to authorize the expenditure, or you may refer back to staff for additional information. And the recommendation is to authorize the allocation of $2,500 from the travel and convention budget to send Councillor Grace to the FCM convention June 2020.
Councillor Mattes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do support the resolution, but I find it interesting with our prior approvals for travel that the point one, in actual fact, we won't know whether we've exceeded the annual budget or not until it's spent. And at this point, going to FCM will not exceed the budget. So in essence, it is approved. We don't have to do an approval until we exceed the budget. Just a point. So until someone goes to UBCM and we actually go over budget, that's when we have to be doing this. But I do support increasing the budget so that we don't overspend it by the time it rolls around at the end of the year. Because we don't know this, but we may not. We don't know.
Well, on that point, because FCM is an allowed travel expense, do we know, just based on previous numbers, that sending two councillors to FCM will indeed have us going over our budget before the end of the year?
See you.
Thank you. Last year we did exceed the budget because we were traveling to FCM by a number of councillors, but we reduced the budget at budget time because due to the fact that it was only determined that the mayor was going to be attending FCM, so we did reduce the budget. We did have monies in there prior to that, but we reduced it during budget discussion.
When is FCM?
June.
So we won't actually exceed the budget until UBC.
Well, I'm happy to move option one now, because we know that we will exceed the budget, as we only left room for one representative to attend FCM. And I'm happy for Councillor Grace and any other councillors to attend, should they see fit. It's a great conference, and I think we all took a lot out of it from last year.
Second.
I'll abstain.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question then. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving to item 3, Oliver Downtown Advisory Committee Terms of Reference for Amendment. Corporate Officer report.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is to introduce an amendment to the Oliver Downtown Advisory Committee Terms of Reference membership section. Council originally adopted the terms of reference for this committee on June 26, 2017, and it's to provide guidance to the Oliver Downtown Advisory Committee. The terms of reference speak to the mandate, makeup, and procedures for the committee. At that time, consultation was provided by Oliver Tourism and the South Okanagan Chamber of Commerce. Since that time, there was interest from council to include a member from the arts community based on some strategic planning goals and objectives for revitalizing the downtown with some artwork or some murals. So we thought, council thought that it was important to maybe have that input from a member from the arts community. So there are some recommendations to council. The amended policy is attached for your information. And council can adopt the Oliver Downtown Advisory Committee Terms of Reference Amendment. You can refer back to staff for further amendments, or you can choose not to consider the Terms of Reference Amendment. The recommendation is to amend the Oliver Downtown Advisory Committee Terms of Reference. That is attached to my report, included in the March 9th regular agenda.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the corporate officer, is the idea then that it's gonna go to the Oliver Community Arts Council for a recommendation for a member?
That would be the usual course. We would send to their association for a recommendation.
Thank you.
Can I have a mover?
Motion.
Moved by Councillor Mattes.
Second.
Second, Councillor Grace.
I have a question.
Question, Councillor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you. The first item on there says that two Town of Oliver members, one staff and one council rep. So, and I know that Councillor Grice and I were both there at the meeting this afternoon and we're both voting on things. So, which one of us is not supposed to be there?
I think it's on my list.
I will look at the committee appointments and maybe one is an alternate.
Yes.
Downtown Advisory.
Okay, thank you.
Further to that, who would be the staff member that's on the committee?
The corporate officer, I believe.
On
No,
the
currently
actual
at this
committee?
time, it's the chief administrative officer, which I believe will move to the development services director.
I see.
So they are actually on the committee and voting?
No, I'm not.
I don't think they're voting.
So then it's
Just say it, I'm just saying what it says.
I understand, but they're not fulfilling.
So if we're gonna
fulfilling
change
either
some,
half.
if we're gonna change something, we should maybe change it here too.
I think we need to send it back.
Councillor Grace.
Your Worship, yeah, I would agree that it needs to either be two council members or they put a staff member generally vote, but they probably shouldn't be listed as a committee member then.
No.
And I found my committee list and I couldn't see.
There you go. So why do I have to go back?
Councillor Henry.
Well, just in addition, and following up on our conversation from the committee of the whole, downtown revitalization / economic development / grow Oliver, all of these things are
Gonna be
a
covered.
fair, I mean, they're gonna get reorganized, but they're a fairly large chunk of what we're working on, and so it makes sense that there are two council representatives on something like that, in my opinion, not just one in an alternate.
CPL.
Thank you, Your Worship. You may then want to amend the resolution to further amend the terms of reference to include two council members and remove the staff member.
I'll accept that friendly.
No, I'm not
Make
saying
that
that. I'm not saying that. I'm just making the suggestion that you might want to further look at this policy and do some.
I'll make the friendly amendment. Staff, but not as a committee.
No, two counselors.
Salaries is that one.
Two council members.
I accept your friendly
Okay,
Yeah, that's seconded.
so we're adding a member, making it 2 councillors. Okay, any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Moving to correspondence. Road officer?
Thank you, Your Worship. In the correspondence report this evening, there are 3 items listed for council's action. The first one being correspondence dated February 24th, 2020 from Mr. Lewis, representing the Southern Okanagan Sportsmen Association, who are seeking support for handicapped accessibility ramps and trails and docks at Takalnuit Lake at Rotary Beach. The report outlines their intent. I have 3 options for council that you may wish to refer to staff for additional information. You may wish to provide conditional support, approval, or support to allow the Southern Okanagan Sportsmen Association to begin their stakeholder engagement process, or you may wish to deny the request. I believe in the letter, it's item B that they are seeking conditional support.
Councillor Mattes?
I would make the motion that council provide a letter of support to the Southern Okanagan Sportsmen's Association to begin stakeholder engagement process regarding a handicapped accessible dock.
Councillor seconded, or councillor question?
No, I'll second. And I was just gonna say too, that I'd love to see a member of the community see a need and to take it upon themselves to do something about it.
Councillor Schwarzenberg?
Thank you, Worship. This is conditional support, and I assume when they say stakeholder engagement, one of the stakeholders would be Parks and Rec Society, and as Parks and Rec looks after that park.
Councillor Benjamin?
In the request, it said that they're requesting the same conditional support from council and from Parks and Rec. And so I agree, it's awesome when someone sees the need and tries to do something about it. I was going to ask if Parks and Rec had discussed this yet, because I know that they have a master plan for Rotary Beach. And I'm assuming it included an accessible dock of some sort, but I don't actually know that, so it'd be interesting to know if they hear. I mean, I totally support the idea that it is their park.
Yes.
I think they're just dipping their toe in the water, so
Yeah, that sounds good.
Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Your Worship. The second is an email from the dated March 2nd, 2020 from the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, who are advising that March 9th, today, through to the 15th, 2020, marks the 22nd annual Stop the Sexual Exploitation of Children and Youth Awareness Week in British Columbia. Couple of options that are before council that you may wish to join in the commemoration or commemorating the week by joining in events that are listed. You click on the link in the email. Most of them in the Lower Mainland, I believe. And to wear a fuchsia colored ribbon to raise awareness of the sexual exploitation of children and youth, or you may wish to receive and file. And I can get you some ribbons. Fuchsia.
Councillor Benjamin?
Well, I would move to receive and file and add that I think that if any of us want to wear a ribbon in support, our corporate officer has just offered to get us some, so I'll take on this. But also the timing is, sometimes we get these things and the timing is not really ideal because the event is either already happened or, just about to. That's the case again, but I would say that that's in a good way because here we are at a public council meeting discussing the fact that today begins the week-long Stop the Sexual Exploitation of Children and Youth Awareness campaign. So that's it.
I'll second.
Second, Councillor Mattes. Any further discussion? Comments? I'll call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the third piece was correspondence dated March 4th from the BC Winter Games President and Chief Executive Officer advising of the recent success of the BC Winter Games in their area and advising that there were 9 Oliver participants. And they have offered that we could contact them for their names and contact information, and council can send a congratulatory note to the 9 Oliver participants, or you may wish to receive a call.
Well, someone's got their hand up, I'll jump in. I think we should send, obtain the names and addresses and send a note to the 9 participants. I think any achievement where you've worked hard to get yourself in shape for a competition, whether or it's music or whatever it is, I think getting acknowledged is important. And that's something we can do with very little effort and cost.
Yeah, a second here.
Absolutely.
Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. And the last piece is the email from the School District 53 regarding their new policy D1, smoke-free, smokeless, tobacco-free, electronic smoking products free, and vapor product-free school district. And policy D9, which is a new policy impairing substances in the workplace, and that's for your information. The proposed motion before council is that the items listed in L5 in the weekly mail correspondence be received.
That's good. Second, Councillor Price. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Moving to report. Airport Manager's Report, February 2020. Question, comments, or we're gonna get a mover to receive the report? Move receipt, Councillor Price. Seconded, Councillor Schwarzenberger. Comments, questions? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Second item is the building permit activity report for February 2020. Move receipt, Councillor Rentamila. Second. Question, Councillor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you, Worship. Through the Director of Public Development Services, the second from the bottom one, the addition on Sawmill Road, that seems like a lot of square feet for $90,000. Is that a typo on either the amount or the square footage?
What was the address there, sorry?
5954 Sawmill Road. Says it's an addition of 7,656 square feet. And the value is only $90,000.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That could have been the existing floor area, so I'll look at that for the next report. I'm not sure if they typically put what the floor area is now in there. Yeah, but yeah.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? It's moved in second, so I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. And the third one is the fire department activity report for February 2020. Move receipt, Councillor Rentamila. Second, Councillor Schwarzenberger. Any questions, comments? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Council reports, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just trying to add something in, I just remembered here, but we'll wing it. Friday, February 26th, I attended coffee and conversation with council. So I think we had maybe a dozen people in total show up. I love this. It's a really nice chance to have an intimate conversation with members of the community and kind of hear the beefs and bouquets without having to get up at the podium here and talk in front of the camera. So I thought that went quite well. Friday, February 28th, I attended a spaghetti dinner fundraiser in support of a year-end trip for all of the grade 7 students entering SOSS next year. They had a talent show. The kids, well, I think they brought in someone to cook, so we were all safe. But the kids all served and bussed the tables and did a great job. Friday, March 6th, I attended, it was a Young Entrepreneurs Day, I can't remember exactly what they called it, but grade 6 and 7 students all came up with a business plan and created a product and sold it, and the gymnasium was full of all of their creations, and it was really fun and exciting to see. Earlier today, I attended the Downtown Revitalization Committee meeting, which was already reported on by Councillor Mattes. And committee the whole meeting, and that's it, my report.
Thanks, Councillor Grace. Councillor Schwarzenberg.
Thank you, Worship. Wednesday, February 26th, I was also at coffee and conversation with council at the Beachies. That was interesting as always to see what good things and bad things people recognize. Thursday, March 4th, I attended Legally Blonde, the musical at Frank Venables Theatre. Some very talented SOSS drama students put on a really great show. And earlier today, with Councillor Grace, I was at the Downtown Revitalization.
Thanks, Councillor Schwarzenberg. Councillor Mattes.
Thank you. So I missed the last council meeting and coffee with council and being down with the flu, so I have a fairly short report this evening. Monday, February the 2nd, I attended an open house over in Kiramias, and this invitation came through the regional district. It was an open house on the Crater Mountain prescribed burn plan, so this is phase 2 of a multi-phase burn. And I mostly want to understand kind of what these prescribed burns are all about, but I learned, and I'm sure that there's people here that would have known this already, but that these prescribed burns are not only used for wildfire management and mitigation, but also for wildlife management, which is something that apparently is a thing, and I had no idea, so I was happy to learn that. Thursday, February the 5th, I attended Regional District Board Day, and earlier today I was in Osoyoos at a roundtable discussion along with Councillor Mattes, with, I believe, MLA Ravi Callan, and it was just about some money they've given out, but for wildfire management and mitigation around the province. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mattes.
Thank you, Your Worship. The 26th, council, coffee, committee cheese with everyone else. Today, I attended the Downtown Advisory Committee meeting for as long as I could until I went to Osoyoos for the roundtable with the Ministry of Forests and Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mattes. For myself, mine is pretty thin. I attended on February 26th coffee with council, and it was on a bit of a holiday with my wife, returning late last night or early this morning, I guess. Next meeting for council is March 23rd, 2020. That's a regular open council meeting. Acting mayor's schedule for March and April and May 2020 is Councillor Mattes. Public question period. Is there anyone in the public that has a question?
There's only a few of us left.
It's actually more than
Come to
normal.
the podium.
You scared everybody else away.
We have a tendency to do that.
My name is Len Tegro. I don't know if you recall, we were here last fall concerning the development permit in front of Casa Rio condos. And I posed a question to your worship there at that time about the access road that everybody calls Spillway. And at that time, you said to me that it deserved an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you the opportunity for that answer.
All right. Well, we have discussed this. We've actually had a meeting, I guess it was a bit of a joint council meeting with the Oliver Osoyoos, or the Osoyoos Indian Band, because apparently what I found out is half that road is the town and half the road is actually owned by somebody on the Osoyoos Band.
It is, it's privately owned by
It's
a
privately
member.
owned, right.
Yeah.
So we also talked to Sean Goodsall, which is the Director of Operations, and there is a plan. They have been working with the Ministry of Transportation. Of course, it's going nowhere very, very quickly. So the reason it came up at a discussion with the Osoyoos Indian Band was to see if we could do something together and figure this out a little sooner without, trying to get past the regulatory stuff with the Ministry of Transportation.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Okay.
I found out it's a very complex issue. What
Yes, it
should be
is.
very simple
No.
is not.
No.
And we're looking at options. Councillor Mattes had a suggestion there about having the exit come off that, get rid of that road as being used as an actual road, or having you come onto that road so that there's more of a four-way stop there instead of this two parallel road there. So it is on our plate. We're still talking about it.
Good. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you.
No, that's okay, that's,
But that meeting was literally less than a month ago, I think, that we had that.
Yeah.
It came up in discussion, so it is still on our radar as something that we would like to take care of, because I agree with you. That is a dog's breakfast, that five-way intersection.
it is an issue that is not simple by any means.
Mhm.
There's too many players that need to be involved,
That's the
so it's gonna
problem.
be very, very complicated.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your answer. The reason why I came was because of, after we had that meeting they sent a letter out to one of our strata members there about that the town would maintain their portion of the road during construction. I found that a very odd comment.
And that came from the town.
Yeah, that letter was sent out that said that with that development is now actually under construction.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty well word for word, that we will maintain the portion of the road that's ours during construction. I was a little disappointed in that response. But I'm glad to hear it. Thank you kindly for bringing me up.
Yes, for sure, it's on our radar, and we're still having discussions about it.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.